Hey guys, so welcome back. It's Yogi Doug Johnson back with another spiritual life hack for you. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about assuming the best in others. Before I do that, if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel and you like this kind of spiritual related content, yoga classes, yin yoga, power yoga, kirtan, 432 hertz music, things like that, please subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions after today's talk or comments, I'd love to hear from you. Leave those in the comments below. And then finally, if you get something from this, please give me an old thumbs up. That really helps me out. If by any chance you feel inspired to help support the channel and myself financially, the community, the Mahapatha Yoga community, please check out the Patreon page. You can start with as little as $1 and you can contribute as much as you like. Okay, so let's get into today's idea, which is assuming the best in others. All real spirituality is ultimately about dealing with something that's called the ego. What is the ego? It is a false sense of self. It's not your real self. It's not who you really are. It is a sort of illusion or phantom. And the way that we deal with it there can be many different ways of trying to deal or handle it. But today's idea is like many of the ideas that I share with you. These are simple thought, you could say experiments. They're not really thought experiments, but ideas for you to carry around throughout your day and to play around with, to see how it affects your day, your mood, how you interact with others. So today's idea is just to assume the best in others. Now, our egos are really good at assuming the worst in others. We see people and we ascribe all kinds of negative motives to what they're doing. We say they're selfish. We say they're sinful. We say they're evil. We call them racist or bigots or sexist. Our egos are so ready to stick a label on someone. Someone is insensitive. Someone is gaslighting us. All of these different ideas. And from the perspective of the world, which our culture's perspective is one of the ego, I hope you understand that our everyday, if you're an American at least, if you're an American or you live in the industrialized West, or I'd say almost any industrialized nation, the standard narrative, what we can call the standard narrative, which is not the spiritual narrative, the standard narrative is that of the ego. So the ego loves being a victim. It loves seeing the other as lacking, as somehow doing us injustice, of creating problems for us. And so again, very often it loves to see the worst in others. That strengthens it. When you go to work and you see your coworker as being lazy or getting away with things, you see your boss as inept, you think you could do a better job than them. Whatever it is, same with your children. You see your children trying to get away with things. And again, I'm not talking about on a practical level. On a practical level, you may have to deal with your children. You may have to deal with a situation at work. That isn't what spirituality is about. Spirituality, as I often say, is about what is in your heart and your mind. So we can deal with a problem at work. We can deal with problem children without assuming the worst in them. Okay? So these are really separate things. Oftentimes what we'll find is we're in judgment of somebody. We're assuming the worst in them, and it really has no bearing on the way we deal with the situation. Whether we see them as being benevolent or we see them as being evil, it really doesn't have a bearing. Again, if I have a coworker and I think they're lazy, I'm not their boss. There isn't really any action for me to take, but I sit at work fuming because I think that my coworker is lazy, and maybe I think that I'm doing their work. Now again, perhaps you go to your boss and you report this. You say, so-and-so isn't doing their work, I'm having to pick up their work, and they say, okay, I'll deal with it. And then you find that the situation doesn't change, right? So then again, you're sitting there fuming, you're angry. You already took the one course of action that you could possibly take, which is to report this to your superior. Your superior said they'd handle it, and they didn't. Now maybe you're upset with both of them. Now maybe you think your superior, oh, okay, they're favoriting them. They've always favorited them. That's the type of narrative that the ego wants you to see. What I'd like you to do is start assuming the best in someone. If your coworker isn't pulling their weight, then maybe you assume, well, maybe they're having a tough time at home. Maybe they're in over their head in this job. Maybe they could use a little bit of help. Is there a way that I can help them out? Same with your superior. Maybe, again, you reported this to your superior. They didn't seem to do anything. And you say, well, you know what? Being a manager is a difficult position to be in. It must be hard dealing with all these different personalities and trying to motivate people. I'm sure they did their best. Okay, now again, how this affects your behavior outwardly, it may or may not affect it. I think oftentimes it does in subtle ways. No one else may know that you're practicing this, but it affects you very often the way you deal with people, whether you smile at them or not, whether you laugh at a joke that they make, little interactions, things like that, that communicate a lot. These things may be affected by something as simple as that change. Now here's the most important thing. It affects how you feel. This is really what spirituality is about. It affects how you see the world, and it affects how you feel. You feel lighter, you feel better. Trust me on this, okay? Going around seeing the problems in the world is not really doing you or the world any favors. Most of our egos think that they're right about everything, and they think that they're brilliant. We've got all the answers, right, guys? We've got it all figured out, and if only everyone would just listen to us, we could fix the world's problems. Well, forget about it, because first of all, that's never going to happen. Second of all, like most people's egos, your ego is full of it. You don't have all the answers. I'm sorry, you don't. You don't have everyone's number. You don't know what everyone's thinking. You may think you do, but that doesn't mean that you do. Lots of people think they know what everyone's thinking. Lots of people like to think that they have the answers. So how are you any different? Are you really so special? So when we recognize this tendency of the ego, we can begin to work against it. And the way that we do this is very simple. Again, I assume the best of everyone in every situation. It doesn't mean that I'm stupid. It doesn't mean that I lay down and become someone's doormat, okay? Sometimes these spiritual principles are taken too far by people. They're misunderstood by people, and people end up being taken advantage of, or again, becoming a sort of human doormat. That's not what this is about, okay? We are simply in our heart and mind changing the way that we perceive others that we deal with, and by doing that, we ultimately change the way we see ourselves. I know that doesn't make sense, again, according to the standard narrative, to the perspective of the ego, which experiences itself as separate. But trust me, ultimately, everyone else is connected with you, and how you perceive them is connected with how you perceive yourself. So we want to see the best in others, because eventually this will lead us to see the best in ourselves. We want to love others, because ultimately that will lead to self-acceptance and self-love. All right, everyone, I hope you got something from this. If you did, again, please say hi in the comments below. Give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and if you hit the bell icon, if you're on YouTube, that'll let you know when a new video comes up. If you're on Patreon, and again, you sign up for as little as $1 a month, you can get notified of events and extra content that I post on there. I hope you got something from this, and I look forward to seeing you next time and hearing from you. Thanks again for your attention, and namaste.